There we go. Is on. Now everybody knows that this session is being pre-recorded, but that's cool. I'm gonna edit it afterwards.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, so from the top, welcome again to our reprise of the live stream that we conducted days ago on Thursday, the 22nd of May, when we didn't really tackle all the topics that we wanted to. So my name is Anna Lewoc, and with me is Veronica Manzanares. I hope that I didn't butcher your last name.
It's okay, don't worry.
And we're continuing the talk about our new project, which is called Read, Create, Share, which is aimed at people who are actually, it is aimed at everyone, but we will tackle topics related to neurodivergence, especially navigating today's world as a neurodivergent. And of course, both working in the translation industry. We will also tackle the topic of using the language so as to be inclusive and also to make our lives easier, right? So last time we just out our own experience, like why this project actually came to be. So let's maybe continue that. I mean, Veronica, what do you think? I mentioned that using language as a means to maybe advocate for neurodiversity, right? So you are an expert on inclusive language. So what would you say we can do, like right now? The stream A gets up and says, "Okay, I'm gonna be inclusive now."
I think that being inclusive is not just about using language for it. It is a big part, but also there are other ways of communicating in an inclusive way. For example, when we are creating presentations, there are some colors that, let's say, if we put them together, they are not very easy to read. So let's say if we put to give you an idea, purple and blue, they are very difficult to read together. So it is advisable to, let's say, use colors that have a big contrast. Let's say black and white, red and white. Like one, ideally one light color and one strong one. So this is one way, obviously using terms that don't exclude anyone. Like, for example, ladies and gentlemen may not be a big deal, but if we consider trans people, for example, then yes, it is a big deal for some people. Or so in that case, we would probably use everyone instead. And it's not as complicated as some people think. It's just about considering the circumstances of different audiences, right? So we can also address aspects like race. We can try to be more thoughtful of people that may not have gone to school, and that therefore they need a language that basically is easy to understand. They need explanations for specific terms, for example. And that if we are let's say in a spoken conversation, we need to not assume, we need to stop assuming that everyone has the same circumstances.
Another thing is that not everybody, for example, we are speaking English right now because we know that our audience is mostly English speaking, but in other, circumstances, you can't really assume that somebody speaks English at the same level as you. because it's
Yeah.
not their native language, right? So yeah, but I interrupted
No, 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 no.
you.
That's a very good point. And also, we don't speak English as a native, at a native level. So
Yeah, we
let's
don't.
say,
Mhm.
so that will also play a role in the conversation, right? That like we, so, for some people it's more obvious, and for others, but it's not only about using the same level of language, but also to avoid making remarks like that can be xenophobic,
Mhm.
like if we really want to include the person in the conversation, we need to make sure that they feel integrated. They need to feel like they can be themselves. So like for example, we speak English because it's our lingua franca, let's say.
Yeah, it's
It's
our, like, we both speak English, so that's the only
exactly,
language we can communicate in, right?
exactly. But it can happen that you speak to people that have different languages, and therefore you realize that you can possibly use another language as a way of communicating.
Mhm.
Um, so um, yeah, we need to be to consider that, to make sure that the conversation is as fluid and as inclusive as possible.
Mhm. Yeah, so I was actually, because the thing is that, of course, I'm trying to be as inclusive as I can, in my work, in my speaking, and in my, everywhere basically. But also, one of my talents, according to the Gallup, Strengths Finder test, like,
Mhm.
my number one talent is includer. So, I think that speaks a lot, right? But the thing is that sometimes, I mean, I think that it's easier to be inclusive in English, because
Mhm.
English is not so severely gendered as probably Spanish. I mean, I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know. But Polish is very, very gendered. I mean, every noun has its gender. So
Yeah.
so sometimes trying to be inclusive also um, like, leads you to create some weird, I mean, unusual grammatical structures, for
Mhm.
example, because of the language itself being gendered. And the thing is that when I'm in my little bubble of people who are aware of the
Mhm.
need for inclusivity and so on, um, then it's easier to use this kind of language.
Mhm.
But if I want to, for example, publish something on social media that will be public and out there, then sometimes I'm kind of wary of using inclusive structures, because people react in different ways to that. And there are some people in my wider social circle, let's say, that wouldn't be very appreciative of me being uh, left-winged uh, person, let's say. So that's that. And yeah, so I was wondering, like, how can we cope with this inner need to be inclusive, or this curiosity about using inclusive language, and also, like, keeping our mental bandwidth, uh, because
Mhm.
you don't always have the bandwidth to deal with the people who are not appreciative of
Yeah.
inclusive language. So that's one thing. And another thing is, like, how can we um, not get overwhelmed with the multitude of possibilities to
I
be
think
inclusive?
that
So,
it is
like, how do you cope with that? Yeah.
I think that it is very important to think what's our who are our readers, right? Like who do you want to talk to? Who is that post addressed to? If you are, let's say, talking to a specific audience, then you need to adapt to them.
Mhm.
Yeah. By adapting, I'm not saying that you have to become a person you are not. I'm not saying that. But let's say if you know that your audience is not, let's say, aware, but they are still open to using inclusive language, then you can use an approach that is more educational. If you know that your audience is not going to accept inclusive language, then I think that there are two options there. One, just use language that is not that inclusive. Another one is thinking, do I want an audience that is going to be more inclusive?
Yeah,
And
why am I talking to them right, in the first place?
yeah, I mean, yeah, that could be the question. Yeah. So I mean, sometimes we cannot choose, right? And that, in that sense, something that I used to do, for example, as an interpreter, is if, let's say, I could see straight away that the person wouldn't appreciate me using like inclusive language, like using the e ending at the end of the word. I would, for example, instead of médico and enfermera, doctor and nurse, which these words have like gendered connotations.
Yeah,
So
like so
médico
medical
is
is like a
male.
man, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would probably use personal médico, which is medical staff, and that there you can include everyone, let's say, and that person wouldn't feel in a very awkward conversation, you know. So
Okay.
there are always ways around it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that the very first question is to basically to ask ourselves, who do I want to talk to,
Mhm. Yeah, I think
and
that's a very
adapt our communication to that.
yeah. And in cases you can't really choose because like you're interpreting in a medical, for example, and
Mm.
then yeah, there are like those more sneaky ways
Exactly.
of doing that. And also, I mean, I think that in the case that you mentioned, I mean, interpreting for somebody who is at the doctor, it's like usually you can either see you know the um, like you can or ask the doctor, you know, how they would like to be referred to. I mean, like
Mhm.
an example from like my, let's say, bubble. So I have a brother-in-law who is he's a radio presenter,
Mhm.
and the thing is that he works in a very it's a religious radio, so they are not, as you can imagine, they are not very appreciative of those, you know,
Yeah.
like medical person and so on, right? So of those gender neutral forms, right? So but actually he does ask before, like when he invites a guest to, you know,
Mhm.
to the program, he asks them if they would like to be referred to as like guest in a general sense, or so in Polish, like, which is,
Mhm.
you know, it's a male word. I mean, it's like the gender of the word is male, but you you don't really, you know, it's like you can refer to a woman as a gość as well. Or there is a new word, new, it's not really new, but like there is a word gościni, which is
Mhm.
kind of, you know, a female guest. So
Mhm.
basically my brother-in-law always asks the women whom he invites whether they would like to be referred to as gość or as gościni. So and that's how, you know, he makes sure that the person he's talking to is not, you know, offended, let's say.
Mhm.
And at the same time, you know, it's just like, I mean, he mentioned that like once at the beginning of the program, right? Something that, you know, the whole audience will just, you know, make an uproar about. So it's not really that you know, it's not really that visible, let's say. But at the same time, you know, I really appreciate that even in this, you know, very religious setting, he's trying to, you know, be inclusive, right? So as you can see, do it in sneaky ways that
Yeah.
you know, leave everybody, well, feeling included. But that's what inclusive language is all about, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so now so we were mainly talking now about you know, language and basically, you know, like using inclusive language in our work. And how do you think we can be more inclusive, especially towards neurodivergent people, in ways that are not linguistic. I mean, what I was thinking about when formulating this question in my head was that, for I really appreciate it when I cooperate with someone, and and we create some project together. I really appreciate it if somebody writes out what needs to be done in writing. That's the thing, that if I talk to somebody on the phone, or on WhatsApp or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's I hear that, but it kind of goes in one ear and out the other, and
Yeah.
that's it. So as a neurodivergent person, I really appreciate the task that I have to do being written out. So
Yeah.
do you have any other ideas how we can, help ourselves and help other people?
Yeah, writing everything down is important, because, as you said, we may forget stuff. It can happen to anyone, so it's always good to have an idea of, like,
Mhm.
yes. So it's always good to be able to go back to the notes, let's say, you know.
Mhm. I
Um,
did just a moment before. So
yeah.
carry on.
Yeah, so I think that being realistic about the timelines is very important as well, right? I think that one of the things that stresses me out is when I feel like I have all the pressure of having to finish everything in 2 hours, let's say.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, sometimes it can um, sometimes a task is like very, very urgent and you have no option of negotiating. It can happen.
Of
And
course.
in those circumstances, I think that it is important for us to feel like we can switch off when we finish, and to try and relax. However, sometimes, I don't know if you have experienced this, but as a translator, for example, sometimes they tell you, "Oh, it's very urgent. They need this by end of the day," you know.
Mhm.
And then you realize that when you are going through the task, it is impossible to get it done by the end of the day.
Mhm.
And then I think the best option there is to tell them, like, look, this is a situation. The timeline is not realistic. Like, all this in a professional manner, obviously.
Mhm.
So can we say, okay, maybe instead of today, end of the day, even though I'm going to do my best, can we say, I don't know, tomorrow?
Mhm.
I think that most of the time when we explain this to the other person, they are more understanding than we think.
Yeah, so to be vocal about your needs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that as long as it's done in a professional manner, I think that most people will try to adapt.
Yeah, especially that, like they want it done, right? So, and
Exactly.
they
And
often,
it needs to be done
uh-huh.
properly. So I think it is a matter of them understanding that it's not, like, most tasks that we do on a daily basis, they are not automatic. It takes
Yeah.
time to read it, to see what we have to do, to see how we have to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
and and also, if you want it, like you can either have it done quickly or well. Right? So yeah, because most of
yeah,
those tasks, yeah, you could probably finish it, but by the end of the day, like if you used, automatic translation or something, right? It's like, but it's is that what the client really wants, right? So
yeah.
yeah, and often, what I find in my work, I'm not sure if this is a universal experience or just, like
Mhm.
I have, contact, is that often, something that is like urgent, um, is like you can actually you actually have to ask, like if it is a task that can't really be done in the proposed deadline, you have to ask, like, is that that deadline, or is it like, I'm going to send it today, but like your lawyer will look at it like in a week's time, and then,
Exactly.
so it's like you actually have to ask, like you have to work with people need to have this sense of control over everything. I think that's that. I mean, they are just control freaks sometimes, and it's like they like to tell people what to do, and they like to kind of like they prefer to have it done today, but actually, bless you, they would need it within the next 3 days, right? So sometimes it can actually be negotiated. Of course, sometimes it cannot, right? Because they just need it like for now.
Yeah.
But basically you need to communicate, right? And I suppose that in most cases, as long as the communication is done professionally, as you said, then a lot of people actually are open to talks, basically. And if they are not, then you just need to think, do I really want to work with such people? So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
No,
because
I
yeah,
agree. I agree.
this time it's like they need the thing by day, but the next day it would be you who needs something, right? So it's like kind of mutual agreement, let's say, right?
Yeah.
So another thing that I noticed, and that was actually suggested by my therapist, is dividing the tasks into um smaller parts. That if I have, for example, right now on my to-do list is preparing exercises for chapter 6 of my video course in English, which is, it doesn't sound like much, but the thing is that I have, in the chapter, I have 3 presentations. I have to make at least 15 exercise presentation, and they have to be like different kinds. And the thing that stresses me out the most is recording the audio for them. So basically, I have this modus operandi, say this mode of work, that first out the exercises. Some of them include graphics, like pictures, so I download the pictures, so that part is ready. And I write out what I have to record in a separate file. And then, recording the thing is a separate task on my list. Because, it's like when I have everything written out, I just, sit down, I record it, and then I do it. So, because this jumping between the tasks is actually exhausting for me. I mean, I thought that I was a master at multitasking, but apparently there is no such thing as multitasking. So instead of jumping from task to task, I'm like, okay, so now for an hour I'm going to do prepare the exercises, and then if I have the energy, I'm going to record everything. And and it's like a separate task. So do you also divide tasks into such smaller chunks in your work?
Yeah. In fact, yeah, I have an agenda, and I have like a board on the wall to make sure that I don't forget anything. So for example, on the board, I do write down some like work stuff, but I leave it for stuff like I don't know, like I need to go to the shop, because it may look like nothing, but you may forget.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. It's
You know?
like, I mean, I
So
wanted to say that you are going to forget. It's not you may, you
exactly,
are
yeah.
going
So
to.
like I just need to write it down somewhere.
Mhm.
Like at some point I remember that I felt like I needed an agenda to remember that I had to use the other agenda, like
Mhm.
it just felt like, oh, I'm going to forget this for sure. So yeah, I think that writing all the tasks down, and that to be precise. I mean, by precise, I don't mean like you need to write down every single step if you don't want to. I think that if you do need that, you can, let's say, open a file on Google Drive, let's say, and
Mhm.
that's just for you. But yeah, so I think that it is important to be concise when we are planning the tasks, because if we, let's say, a task includes, I don't know, 5 other subtasks, then it can be frustrating for us
Yeah.
to mark it as done.
Yeah, I mean, you like before you mark it as done, you have to, cross out all the 5 subtasks, and then,
Exactly.
it's like you don't have one task, you suddenly have 5 tasks, and
Yeah,
it's quite a
exactly.
lot. And yeah, you know what I do to trick my brain into not thinking about it, because I have a similar setup
Mhm,
as you. So I have, a board here, and actually,
mhm.
so that is one thing that I also use, because sometimes you have tasks where it's not really they don't really depend on you. I mean, you have to wait
Yeah,
for somebody to do something else. So you have those Kanban boards, right? So you have like that to do, in progress, and done.
yeah.
So the done is really important, but I have one more column in here, and this is on hold, which
Hmm.
is like, it's not to do by me, it's like it's
By
waiting
someone else.
for, some approval or something like that, right? So, and this is really useful, because I found myself forgetting about the tasks that, my part is done, but now I'm waiting for someone else to do their part. And if I
Mhm.
put them in my in progress part, in the in progress column, then it's like I'm always being, stressed is, if I don't know, like, oh, or something,
Mhm.
right, for the conference. And then I'm like, oh, but I'm still waiting for the pictures, right? So, and if it's on hold, then I know, okay, there is something that needs to be done by someone else before I go get to it. So that's one thing. And another thing is that I also have like a small agenda that has, like, I mean, I know it looks like an interpreter's notebook, but it's not. It's actually, yeah, you can't really see that. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Mhm.
It's like it's just a to-do list from the shop Action. I love it.
Yeah.
It was really cheap and I love it. And I mark the tasks for the particular day. So I have, also sections like, the minimum plan and like the optimum plan, which I usually don't get to. But yeah, so the tasks are here. And if there is a task that is divided into smaller tasks that I really don't want to do because they are not very mentally rewarding, then I use those little sticky notes, I mean, of this kind. And
Mhm.
I write out the tasks on the sticky notes, but I don't put them, like everywhere. I put them one on top of the other. So when I finish the task, I rip, so I can only see the task that I'm doing right now.
Hmm.
Right. And then I rip out the sticky note.
Yeah.
I bin it, and then I can see the next one. So basically, like, it tricks my brain into not looking at the big picture, because, usually it's good to look at the big picture, but sometimes it's not,
Yeah.
especially if I don't want to do the task. So, yeah, so I just need, okay, so you just write out 10 exercises for the course, and then that's it, that's the end of the task, right? So, and then my brain is like, yeah, I guess I can do 10 exercises, and it works for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I recommend this way. Okay. So can you think of any other, trick that you use every day in order to, to help your brain, like, in order to work with your brain and not against your brain?
I think that, for example, when, let's say, we feel like we have a lot of work, we tend to, especially when, let's say, we are translating and something, and that project consists of, I don't know, 3 files, let's say.
Hmm.
So you have, so you open the cat tool and you have the 3 files in, and everything is set up so you can start working. A mistake that I used to make, and sometimes I still do, is in an attempt to finish everything, I tend to open everything at once.
Oh yeah.
And area,
And
like,
you have like 1,000 segments, and you're like, oh my god, that is not
exactly,
being done. Yeah.
exactly. And the other day, for example, I was working on a project. It had 2 files, and I opened both at the same time. And by mistake, I was like switching from one to the other, and like I was like it was crazy because one had, I don't know, like 400 segments. The other one was like about 100, let's say.
Hmm.
And suddenly I was like, what happened here? Like they multiplied. No, what happened is that I opened the other one by mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it. It's like you really have to have only the
Yeah, exactly.
thing out, right?
Focus on one thing at a
So
time, because otherwise it will be very frustrating.
yeah, and also you can, I mean, in such a situation, I would probably get lost. I mean, I would be like, okay, I think I translated that already. I know that
Exactly.
cat tool, it auto propagates stuff, but sometimes it's like you feel it's like a similar thing.
Hmm.
But it's the cat tool, for the cat tool, it's different enough so that it doesn't suggest a fuzzy match or something, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. But yeah, also when working with cat tools and you have several files in the same project, and there's going to be repetitions because the analysis told you so.
Hmm.
I'm a cat tool trainer, so it's like, I mean, I teach cat tools at university, so yeah, which is kind of funny because yeah, because I was, when I was doing my studies, we had this joke going on that, me and two of my friends, oh, you'll see, we're gonna finish studies, and then we're gonna be, teachers at the university. And then what? All three of us became teachers
Oh
at
gosh.
university. So that was funny. Anyway, so with the cat tools, it's like if you finish one file and you kind of finalize it, then you get all the repetitions, as exact matches then.
Mhm.
So that's why, it's like it's also an incentive to, finish one thing first and then, take on the
Then the
other.
other. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a bit problematic when the task, like when this one thing spreads over, a longer time. I mean, like for example,
Yeah.
I had a doctoral thesis for to review,
Hmm.
not as not as a supervisor, because I'm not a doctor, but just a friend of mine was writing her thesis in English, and she needed somebody to to do the linguistic review,
Hmm.
and it had 500 pages. So yeah, really. And she said it's not everything. It's like it was missing the introduction and the last chapter. So it's going to be like, a book like this thing.
Yeah.
It's like Harry Potter. Actually, the thesis was really interesting, and I hope that she publishes it. So yeah, and but the thing is that, you can't possibly do a review of 500 pages in one day. I had
Mhm.
like 2 weeks to do it, which was still tight, but possible. At some point I was doing like 100 pages a day because it was just so interesting to me. So yeah, but anyway, so usually I would treat such a task as a bit problematic because it's it spreads over a few days. And the thing is that I used to make this mistake that I would just, sit with a task until I passed out. Oh, wait a second. Yeah. So until I passed out from exhaustion, right? And then, be frustrated that I didn't finish it. So here I created another trick for my brain, and that is, it doesn't often. I mean, it's also connected with dividing the tasks. So I could say, okay, I'm going to do 25 pages or like 50 or whatever. But sometimes, well, as a translator, you know that sometimes the 25 pages takes a long time, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the 100 pages is like pff, and done.
Yeah.
So it's like, there is no, like, I don't think that pages are the best way to calculate
No, it
progress.
really depends on like the
Yeah.
quality of the text, let's
Yeah,
say.
yeah, I mean, that was really well written, right? So it was a pleasure to read, but it's like in
Yep.
this case, just pages wasn't the best. I was like, okay, I'm gonna work on that for like 2 hours now. I
Mhm.
set the timer, I put on the music, and I just work on that. And I do as much as I do, right? So basically that. So for me, this time bound,
Hmm.
like stretch of work, it actually works better than the pages,
Yeah.
right? So this is how I prefer to divide the tasks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that is one thing, and the other I was going to suggest is to basically try to be realistic, because it's as we said, like pages or amount of words, and it depends. I mean, if it's translation, the amount of words can help, but if it's, let's say, proofreading, it really depends on a million things. And because you didn't do it, and you didn't like write or translate that text, it can be very frustrating, you know.
Yeah.
And you cannot just like like cross everything. Let's say that's not ethical. So you need to be realistic. You need to, like, is this because I would say something differently, or because it's just not correct? You
Yeah,
know,
so
why?
like, yeah. So are you doing it, like just so that it's readable, or you're doing, the whole editing stuff that, that it also has to, beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So to communicate with the client, right? Because in of this doctoral thesis, this friend of mine actually told me that, I want it to sound sophisticated. It already sounded sophisticated, but I tweaked it in a few places, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so you need to communicate with the client, like what do they need, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's for example, it can happen that there are like false friends. Let's say two words that look like very, very, very similar, and both words do exist, but they are used in different contexts, and you
Like,
need to be careful with that.
yeah, so an example from English would be effect and affect, right? So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, or
people
like,
often use them, yeah, in a not the correct way, right?
yeah, like the other way the other day I found produce when they meant product. So both
Oh yeah.
words exist.
Yeah,
So
I mean, but produce is like,
what it is.
yeah, but it's like, um, in agriculture, like you have agricultural
Exactly.
produce,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, uh-huh.
And this was an academic text, but like nothing to do with agriculture.
Yeah,
So, yes, and like when I first read it, I was like, "Oh yeah, this sounds normal," you know. But when you read it the second time, it's like, "Okay, hold on, this is not what the text means," you know.
yeah. So but I think that it's useful for such cases to have kind of like a list of such words. Like I do such a list for. I mean, I have it like in my head most of
Mhm.
that, but I do such a list for every longer text that I translate or proofread.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like, for example, okay, so in this doctoral thesis we are placing a comma after eg, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to do it, but like, okay, so this just for the sake of how do you call that, the unified format of everything, that
Yeah.
okay, we're placing the comma, and then find replace is your friend then. And so yeah, so that's that, right?
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, but so like, how do you economize your spoons, let's say? So now a disclaimer, I'm talking about the spoons theory, which was coined, the term spoon was coined by Christine Miserandino, so you can read more about it if you'd like. Just if you Google spoons theory, then you're gonna find it. And a spoon is a measure of mental energy. Yeah, so how do you economize your spoons when you have such a task, like a longer translation that spans over a few days? Like,
Mhm.
okay, so today it's the time to finish, and like the next day comes, you sit back to do the translation. Like, what do you do?
So let's say if it's a very long project, uh, so to give you an idea, this last week I managed to translate 15,000 words in 4 days. Don't ask
Oh
me
my
how.
god. Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
that's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so
15,000 words.
I
Yeah,
like
for those who
mentally
still
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like trying to divide the task in like groups of 300, 3,000
Mhm.
per day. Obviously, I needed to do a bit more than that, but as long as I managed to do that, and then the following day I was like, okay, let's start a bit earlier and try to do a bit more. You know, these are texts that, for example, I've been working on this like long-term project for quite a while, and so I already have a translation memory. However, it can happen that sometimes you end up finding a better solution, a better
Mhm.
term when you have translated it 20 times. It can happen. It's
Yeah,
very
it can
annoying, but it
happen.
can happen.
Absolutely. And then again, find replace is your friend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it, sometimes you have already delivered stuff and you cannot modify them, but it's like, okay, moving forward, I'm going to do this. So, yeah, I mean, it's about, it's not about the 3,000 words. It's about obviously doing it properly, right? So,
Mhm.
and like making, sometimes we need to go back and mentally edit everything and going back to the translation memory and changing everything.
Yeah.
So that can take a bit of time as well. But, you know, it's about being realistic about what we can do in, let's say, one day.
Mhm.
Especially translating. I mean, when you have worked on a specific field for quite a while, sometimes you can do a bit more than 3,000 words in a day without burning out. But if, let's say that it's a completely new topic for you, I would start with small amounts. It's better
Mhm.
to do 2,000 words in one day than to try and do 4,000 and not doing it properly.
Oh yeah, and then like having to come back to it and correct, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, so that's also a version of the like minimum plan, optimum plan, and maximum plan, right? So yeah,
Exactly.
so I think that this is actually, this applies to quite a lot of things. I mean, because I also saw this. Like I don't really remember where it was, but I'm pretty sure that it was on a lot of Instagram pages dedicated to ADHD. So it's like you have those, let's say, red light days, not to be confused with red light district, yellow light days. Jokes aside, yeah, yellow light days and green light days. So basically, it's this was related to energy, but as you
Yeah.
said, it can also be related to like your experience or expertise in a given field, right? That
Yeah.
a red light day is okay, so I'm not feeling it. For energy, it's like I just want to go take a nap, and for expertise it would be like I don't really feel very you know experienced, like very at ease in this topic. So
Mm-hmm.
then my plan for the red light day is like 1,000 words or 2,000 words, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I can do, and then go take a nap or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
The yellow light day would be like, okay, so for energy, it would be like just, like a normal day, like,
Mm-hmm.
not bad, not good. For translations, it would be like, this is, something that I know something about, or I have, a translation memory for that, or, I can just find the sources easily, right? Because that's another thing that, translating is like half of the work is Googling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it is
yeah, so
actually.
on such a day, I do like 3 or 4,000 words, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a green light day, so like I'm full of energy, I feel like in the world. I mean, we all have that kind of day sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Rarely, but we do. And for translation, it will be like, yeah, this is a topic that I know everything about. So like, if I was supposed to translate something about cat tools, right, I would be like done, like no time, right? So
Yeah.
then it's like you can do, I don't know, like the largest amount that I did in one day. It wasn't about cat tools, but it was about something that I'm also familiar with. So that was, I don't know, 8,000 words, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it's like you can't do that every day. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
no, no, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
it's like
But yeah,
like
it does sound like a lot.
yeah, I mean, I was like in this state of flow. Like
Yeah.
I forgot to eat. I didn't forget to go to the toilet because I would have to wear a diaper, right? But if I could wear a diaper, I would, because I was just so focused on that. But I can't really count on myself doing that every single day because it's just not feasible, right? It's like there is no way. It's like I was trying to do that at some point, like maybe not
Yeah.
translating 8,000 words, but like working like as if it was my green light day every day, but it's just not possible. It's like it's better to to set your let's say the threshold for for a successful day
Yeah.
a bit lower, like let's say at 50 or percent of your abilities, and
Mhm.
make that your 100. And then if you do the 8,000 words, so then you did 200% of the normal bandwidth, right? And then
Mhm.
like you can be proud of yourself. But if not, then it's okay too, right? So
Yeah.
basically so what you're saying, be realistic, but also like don't like remember that your good days, your best days are not your normal. And it's
Exactly.
not normal for anyone. Those people who write those messages on LinkedIn that, oh, today I did, like, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I went for a run and then I did 8,000 words of translation and it's not even lunch yet. They are, I mean, it's probably their green light day. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's for sure it's not like that, every day. And if it is, then I mean, good for them, right? It's like, yeah, but you shouldn't compare yourself to
No,
such people.
absolutely not. And I think that we like something that we often forget is that we have different circumstances to everyone else. Let's say, I hate when like people compare themselves to others, and I've made that mistake a lot, right? Like, um, I don't know. Sometimes you talk to because I'm a single mom. So to give
Hmm.
you an idea, sometimes you talk to other parents, and we are all constantly like, how do you manage? You know,
Hmm.
like we all have like different mechanisms to cope on a daily basis, right? For example, something that I do is to buy stuff in bulk, or like to cook in bulk. Why? Because I absolutely hate cooking. So when I do that, I cook twice a week.
Yeah, and I do the same thing. Like, I love those, big one pot meals where you
Exactly,
just, put everything in and then you have dinner for like 4 days. It's perfect.
exactly,
And or
and
for 2 days and you freeze the rest, right?
exactly. So it may look like I'm super organized. No, it's not that. It's not that. I don't want people to feel bad about it. But for example, when I buy snacks for my daughter, let's say, instead of buying one bag, I try to buy, let's say, two or three, so
Hmm.
that I make sure that I always have something. It may look like I've gone absolutely crazy and I always have everything in my bag, or my bag is like Mary Poppins. It's not that. you
Yeah,
know.
I'm the same. Yeah, and also like I'm the person who, when we're going like on a road trip or something, I always have snacks with me. But
Hmm.
because I know that, if I need to eat something because like I can feel my blood sugar, going down,
Yeah,
then, I'm not going to stop at a gas station, right? I just prepare it
yeah,
beforehand. And it's kind of I treat it as a favor to tomorrow's me.
yeah.
Right? So, like the same thing, like I prepare my clothes for the next day. Like, actually, my sister was visiting me last weekend, and in the evening I made her bed, like in the living room, and I was preparing my clothes, and I was like, okay, so this is my bag for the gym, this is my bag for the office, and I need to take this ring lamp, and need to take this. Okay, the makeup is here, like, all the makeup was already in a bag just waiting for the morning, right? Like, my clothes for the gym are here, my clothes for the office are here, and these are the home clothes that I'm gonna wear when I come back. And she was like, like, what do you prepare like that for your whole day? And I'm like, yes, because if I have a delay during the day, then I'm not just running like a crazy person, just trying to find everything. It's already prepared, so it's a favor for tomorrow's me. So it looks like I'm super organized, but actually I just know that if there is a delay, I'm going to be super stressed, so I prevent that. So
Yeah,
stress prevention, I would say, it's one of the most important things, especially if you're neurodivergent and that it will look like that, because it always looks like that,
yeah,
right? So yeah, of course you can't prepare for everything, right? But as much as as you can, when you have the
yeah,
mental bandwidth. Yeah, because
yeah.
I knew that on the day, with the gym and the office and so on, I'm not going to have the mental bandwidth for choosing the makeup, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. And I think that um, like one very easy mistake that, for example, I made as a mother, and I know that it happens to everyone, uh, is assuming that you have everything. When it's very easy to forget stuff, it's very,
Yeah.
very easy. And like sometimes we assume like, oh, it's fine if we don't have everything in the bag, but it takes only one time that you forget to put something in the bag that you need it. And
Yeah.
like it, like I've learned from my mistakes to try to be as prepared as I can. I prefer to, let's say, put I don't know, like 3 or 4 pieces of clothes in the bag, just
Oh
in
yeah.
case. I may not need them, but the day I need them is when I don't have them.
Yeah, obviously it's like, insurance, right? You buy it and you hope you won't need it, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, so I mean, I have the same thing. It's like, I in my bag I actually always have, like, I mean, I have several bags, but in the main bag
Yeah.
I always have a little purse with, like toothpaste and toothbrush, because, what if I eat something with garlic at lunch and then I'm going to teach, and, I'm gonna to, like waft garlic onto my students. So yeah, so I have that. Of course, most days I don't use it because I don't need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but this kind of stuff, so yeah, so I also prefer to have, to just think ahead. It's a bit like, if when you're the how do you call that, the maid of honor at a wedding, right? It's like, so imagine that, your brain today is your maid of honor and you are the bride tomorrow. So
Hmm.
like, what will you need? You're gonna need, a stain remover, a tooth floss,
Yeah.
um, you're gonna need what, deodorant, snacks, water bottle, electrolytes,
Hmm.
painkillers, right, and stuff like that. So basically, you just think, it might seem like catastrophizing, but you think what can go wrong, and then you
Exactly.
prepare for it when you have the possibility to,
Yeah.
right? And then, the next day, or, later in the day, you're gonna thank yourself if that happens and if it's needed. And if it's
Yeah.
not needed, then, all the better, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we are actually going to need to finish soon because I have other obligations. But Veronica, you mentioned to me that you are preparing a special kind of publication, right? So can you tell us more about it?
So I already published the guideline on inclusive language in Spanish a few months ago. So my idea is to do the same in English, but this one will be slightly different. It will be a bit more theory and practice, let's say. That's my main idea, at least. So it will be like the main book. Also, there will be like a workbook, a handbook, and this will be the practical part. So the person can basically analyze their own work, their own strategies, the and there will be like an online part to that, with the idea of like asking for help if needed, and like sharing knowledge. um, so I'm still working on it. I'm taking my time with this because, as you said, we don't have the same level of energy every
Yeah.
day.
So you're being
So
realistic.
yeah, exactly. So I want
Yeah.
to do this properly. I don't have a deadline. I haven't launched anything yet, so I need to be I, realistic with myself. Um, and before setting everything, I want to make sure that I have like, I don't know, 90% of the content done.
Hmm.
I'm I did think at some point, let's just translate the other guide. But I thought, like, you know what, I actually wanted to be a bit different.
Hmm.
And so yeah, the main idea will be to involve the person in the learning process, and to hopefully like create a small community around the topic of like creating knowledge in about inclusive
Hmm.
language.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So, yeah, so watch out for that, everyone. All right, so I guess that's it for today. So let's wrap it up, and I hope that we will be able to take up the topic during our next live. So let's everybody, let's keep in touch about the next date. So when we have the date and the guest lined up, we will post about it on our Instagram profiles. And let's get on with our afternoon or evening or, well, the rest of the day, depending on where you are. Okay, so thank you, Veronica, and thank you, everyone, and see ya.
Thank you very much. And please feel free to follow us sorry, on the social media, and to join the conversation by leaving a comment, or even ask questions if you may have any. And yeah, so the idea is to create one session per month, maybe more, um, depending on our capacity. And yeah, we hope to see you online.
Yep, see
Thank you
ya.
very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.